shooting video all day. Have new fits and stuff. So. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jen and this is Jen Restyle and Fashion. All right, so this week we have another tie upcycle, and if you follow me over on Instagram, if you don't, you should. My Instagram is Jen Restyle Fashion, but if you follow me over there and you have been watching my YouTube shorts, you probably saw this upcycle in like a 30-second reel. Well, today I am bringing it to you in long form so that you can see how exactly the tie corset was put together. So yeah, we're gonna jump right into it. And if you have questions or need to, ask me, anything about what I did, please put those questions below in the comments and I will respond to your comments as soon as possible. All right, let's get into it. Now, I can't remember exactly how many ties it took to make this corset, but I want to say it was around 20 to 25. I decided to go with a more red theme, like a deeper burgundy red kind of, try to stay in that kind of hue. I have a lot of red and burgundy and like oxblood ties, and so I thought this would be a good way to kind of bring them all together. Alrighty, so I started first with the first tie using my dress form, and I knew I wanted the ties to cover the bust, obviously. So I just started high enough so that I would have coverage. And it took about, I would say, maybe 8 or 9 ties to cover the front. That's not including the sides. That's just the front. And so you see me here just pinning them together. So I pinned the top of the tie to right above the bust, and then I pinned the sides of the ties to each other, kind of angling them towards the middle because my hope was that this was going to bring some shape to the ties and some shape to the corset. Now, once I got those about 8 ties pinned together, I decided to try it on and make sure that where I placed the pins, the overlap was just enough, and where I plan to stop sewing also worked. So all of this is really important because when you put it on, where you start and stop and how you kind of adjust the ties is going to make a difference. So you have to do this the way it's best for you. But for me, I thought it was turning out pretty okay. Now I know that in the front it's going to sit a little higher, so the ties are going to be a little higher up. On the sides and under the arms, you're going to have to drop the ties down just a tad so that they go under your arms. So I dropped the ties that are underneath the arms. I dropped them down maybe about a half an inch, roughly. All right, so now we're going to start on the back, and I'm using the same method that I used for the front. I put one tie in the middle, and then I worked my way to the sides from there. Now you might ask, how did I end up getting this on and off? Did I put buttons? Did I put snaps? Did I use a zipper? And the answer is I used a zipper, but you could use buttons. You could use snaps. You could even probably use Velcro. I know zippers are difficult for some people, and I also realize that sewing buttonholes is not for everybody. So you might consider some Velcro. The only thing with Velcro is when you sit down and you move around, you might hear it. So don't skimp on the Velcro. All right, so let's get back to the arranging of the ties. And I'm basically just pinning them to the dress form. I'm angling them towards the middle ever so slightly. It still took about 9 or 10 ties, maybe about 8 ties for the back. So I slapped on the front to see if they would match up at the sides, and I realized I needed to add an extra tie on the side panels. All right, so next we're going over to the sewing machine, and I moved my corset over to the sewing machine very carefully because every time I would move, pins would fall out, and that can be very challenging. All right, so you may want to ask also, how much did I overlap? I overlapped about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so you see me here overlapping a tie on top of a tie, and then I'm going to stitch down. I do a little back stitch at the top, and then as I'm sewing it down, I remove my pins. All right, let me tell you a little something about sewing ties. Ties are cut on the bias, which means that they stretch and they move. I'm not going to go into a long explanation about the bias because I did talk about this in my video on creating a white tie and how important it is to know all the things that you need to know about sewing fabric on the bias. So, keeping that in mind, because this fabric stretches and moves, you're going to have to take your time when you sew the ties together. So you'll have to go slow. You'll have to use sometimes a larger stitch in some places, and sometimes you'll only be able to sew down a little bit at the top, and then you'll have to flip it over and sew it the rest of the way. Now, I am pretty lucky. My sewing machine, feed dogs, presser foot, everything is pretty well aligned. So I don't have a lot of that going on here, but I'm still challenged. And so I'm just taking my time as I sew down each one of these ties. Okay, first try on, and I'm liking the way it's starting to come out. Next, I'm gonna go to the back panel and begin to stitch down the back pieces. You'll notice that as I am stitching, each tie is overlapped to the next tie, and you want to try to keep this uniform all the way through. Now, of course, if you want to change the design and you want to use more ties, you can overlap it more, but just know that that is going to make the entire corset a lot thicker, and that might become problematic down the road. Okay, so I decided to put a zipper in the side because you all know I'm always struggling with zipping my clothes, especially when the zipper is in the back. So when I make my own clothes, I put the zipper on the side because it's way easier to access. Now, the way I did this, I inserted the zipper by attaching one side of the zipper to the tie and stitching right on top. And so the teeth of the zipper, you can't really see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right, so I'm carefully pinning down one side. And you want to really take your time because if you're using silk ties, it can be very slippery and the zipper can start to move around a little bit. So when you pin, you want to pin so that the ball of the pin is facing towards you so that it's easier for you to pull it out. So you can see here I'm kind of struggling a little bit to get it started. But you start at the top, you do a reinforcement stitch, and then I just pull the rest of the pins out and I am keeping the zipper in place using my fingers. I unzip the zipper so that that other part doesn't get in the way. And you're just going to stitch all the way down until you feel like, you know, that's the place that you want to stop. I stopped at the same location where I stopped on the ties. And I found that where I stopped was when I tried it on to make sure that, you know, that was comfortable for me. So it was kind of at the waistline. Now you're going to do the other side. Now with the other side of the zipper, because I don't want the zipper to show, even though it would probably blend in okay, I took the other tie and I overlapped it. See, I overlapped it so that it extends beyond the teeth. And that way, when it zips up, you have a flap. So that particular tie overlaps that red tie. And then when you zip it up, you can't see the zipper. All right, so I am overlapping the tie over the teeth and stitching down. Now, again, just keep in mind that because you're sewing silk, you're sewing fabric on the bias, it is going to move a little bit. So just beware, take your time while you're sewing. Okay, you guys, I did a quick try on and it looks like it's okay. It's okay over the shirt. Now, what it's going to be like, you know, over without the shirt, it might be a little too big. So a couple things I'm going to do. One, I'm going to go ahead and add the boning. I'm going to add the boning in the front, in the back. Let's see. So in the front, I'm going to put a piece here, and then I'm going to put a piece here, and then I'm going to put a piece here. In the back and on the side. So I am going to run a piece of boning right next to the tie that's next to the zipper. And then I'm going to do 2 pieces of boning here in the back. I hope I have enough because I don't have a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in there first before I close it up. So let's start with the front. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to do the first piece of boning right here in the front. And I actually like where I decided to stop. So right where I ended the stitching is actually really good. Alright, so the thing about putting boning in on an industrial machine, I don't have a zipper foot. I really need to get a zipper foot because it's moving. I mean, I'm catching it, but I'm barely catching it. Am I getting it? I'm getting it. We're going to stick with it. But it's barely catching because the boning, I guess I could pull the boning down. I might do that when I do the other side because I'm almost not even catching it at each stop. Alright, we're going to just do a little back stitch there and then I'll go ahead and cut this. I said I was going to talk about the different types of boning. This is one. It's like a plastic boning inside of black fabric. It's very basic and it's probably the most affordable. But when I'm doing really expensive projects, I use these metal boning because I feel like they're so much better. I mean, I got half of mine to use them in here. It would really just mean me going in and stitching down. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and use that on the rest. I haven't used these yet. I keep saving them for some project. Let's just use them now. I'm going to go ahead and do this one side, this other side of the boning. And I'm trying to keep the foot on top of the plastic boning on the inside and run the needle down the side. Okay. All right, not bad. Now I'm going to cut a little bit of this plastic boning off at the top. If you've ever had clothing with boning, or even a bra that had underwire, and when it got old, that boning or that underwire started to come out, it's very annoying, and I do not want to have that problem with this. I'm actually thinking about putting this in the show, you guys. You'll see. By the time you see this, the show has happened. And this is my video to help give me a little rest during the week because I know I'm going to be so tired. So I'm trying to get this video done for you guys so you'll have a video on the week after the show and I'm not running around like a crazy lady. All right, so let me show you how we do the other boning. So that's the middle. Right here, that's the middle. And then all I'm going to do is use the ties as my casing. All right, we are going to now put in this boning. Now, there are several types of boning, and I will do a separate video on the different types of boning. But this particular one is the plastic boning. It is encased in like a gross grain ribbon type fabric. I also have metal boning, which I think actually works better, and it's very expensive, but I think it works better. The reason that the plastic boning sometimes isn't most favorable is because it comes on a roll, and sometimes it doesn't lose its shape of the roll. It doesn't lay flat, and so that could change the shape of your garment. So I'm going to use the metal boning. I'm making sure with my finger where it starts and stops so that I don't sew over the metal, but I can see it. I'm pushing it all the way over to the seam. I'm coming down. And then I'm just gonna seal it off so that the boning doesn't slide out. We're gonna just stitch across the bottom. I push the boning to the side, and then that's where it stops. Okay, and then we're gonna go back up to the top and do the same thing up here. I'm gonna push the boning down a little bit so that it hits right down there where it's supposed to. And then I'm just going to come up here and stitch across to hold it in place. We have the middle. We have this one on the side. We have a crying dog. All right, I just hope that that is enough. It looks like it is, although the middle boning is doing something weird. No, it's not. It's actually laying nice and flat. You guys can't see, but I can see. Let me check the time, because these dogs are whining, and I'm trying to fit. Oh, it's... Do y'all know, my dogs, you would swear they wear a watch. The way they clown when it's time to go out. All right, so I did those two. You saw how I did them. I'm going to go feed and walk them. I'll be back for you in a few minutes. For me, a few long minutes. All right, done walking the dog, and as you can see, I have one dog in my lap. as per usual. Anyway, I'm going in to finish adding the boning. And I will tell you what I ended up doing is adding boning all the way around the corset. And the reason why is because ties, with them being cut on the bias and because they're silk, this is a very flimsy, very lightweight fabric. It doesn't have a lot of structure. The boning is what is going to give the corset the structure. That's what's going to make it stand up and stay up so that you're not constantly pulling the tie up. And the only way to do that is to add something in there that's going to keep the ties from falling out. Now, could you do this without boning? Yes, you could. You would have to make sure that it was a perfect fit, which would mean when you put the zipper in and zipped it up, that it was so snug that it would not move. Now, that would also mean that the corset wouldn't be very comfortable. So, in my opinion, it's better to go ahead and use the boning. It just saves you some time. You use boning in wedding dresses and prom dresses. Boning is used in bras because bras are made from a very thin fabric and it would not hold up against your body unless it had boning in there. So check out your bras. Look at the side panel next to the underwire. There's usually a little stiff piece of something that's in there. All right, so now I'm getting ready to close up the corset, and you'll notice that instead of overlapping the final two ties, I'm actually putting them right sides together and I'm stitching straight down. And the reason that I'm doing this is so that if I need to make an adjustment later on, it's easier. So you remember I tried on the corset over a shirt. The shirt is a lot thicker, and so it fit, but who knows, I might need to go back in and make it a little tighter, which incidentally I did. I did have to go back in and make it a little tighter. So this way I have a regular seam in the corset and I can just go in and make it more a deeper hem. And that's easy peasy. All right, you guys, I am coming up on the end of this video. We are done with this tutorial. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please put them below and I will see you back here next week. And for now, enjoy the try on.